in Phillipsburg. I think you just passed the thing I had a comment on. Did you just pass 26? The one about the rules that go with the $5 million contract that it was sort of, I liked it in general. Did you just pass 2019-26?
Yes, sir.
My comment is moot.
We still have a second reading, Jeff.
First reading.
Well, the second reading, when it comes up, I'll give it.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else?
Oh, I could do it now. It's simple. It's
Bill Timmon, 230 South Main Street.
Hi.
I again ask that you postpone the rent control ordinance for at least 60 to 90 days to get all of the landlords time to respond to it, since probably none of them have been informed other than if they were at a meeting. So you get the input from the affected parties. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Mo Bresson, 94 Morgan Street. I had a question about the appropriateness of taking a vote on 2019-26 before there were any public comments. As we saw, Mr. Minor said he had a comment on it. I was wondering whether the gentleman who you said came from New York, I'm assuming they were here for that since they left afterwards, whether they might have had any comments and they weren't given an opportunity to do so. So that's my only comment.
Thank you very much.
John Turnbull, 98 Lewis Street. The agenda item regarding the parking on Wheeler Alley. If I may address the council with a couple of questions as to why you would want that. Has there been complaints?
So initially, when we at the first meeting we had addressed it, was that there was no barricade. There were some complaints within the area. We had requested that perhaps it be a barricade, there be a barricade around the swing area, and probably about 5 or 6 feet in where the tree line is. So if someone accidentally stepped on a pedal, they had something to stop them from taking out the children to the park, something along those lines. And the chief of police had stated that he would investigate and perhaps make it a one-way. That was 2 weeks ago.
Okay, I don't know about that. I agree that if there should be barricades so nobody can actually pull forward and run somebody over. There were fences there originally and they were rotted and fallen apart and the town has not repaired them. But that parking is not essential for the Steel Hill Youth Organization, but it's kind of critical. I mean, you know, we're there with 140 plus kids every night practice and there's just not enough parking. If you eliminate that parking stretch, it's just going to overflow to the streets around the park area, and I'm trying to be mindful of the fact that people do live there. And we had a couple of complaints Sunday at our game when we had the cars moved, but ordinarily we don't have many issues. So I'm wondering, is there a way we can still park there if you put a fence up?
I'm certainly amenable to a fence. I believe the rest of the council would be as well. I have every intention of passing the first reading of this ordinance tonight, and we do have another 2 weeks before the second reading.
I understand that.
So I'm more than amenable to the fence. Still
I
like,
just don't want to lose that much parking. We have parking in the school parking lot, but that's minimal, it's very small.
Sure.
So even on Sundays, when we have our football games, it's even worse, obviously, because there's a visiting team coming and they have how many vehicles as well. So if we don't have that, that's hindering. That's going to push everybody out to the other streets, to around the neighborhood, and then we just kind of don't want to be there.
for the record, I didn't call the cops.
I'm not saying.
All right.
I'm just wondering, where it all comes from. If there's complaints, we can address that through our organization. People parking,
Right.
one-way street would probably make it better anyway because they don't have cars trying to cross. It's a very narrow alley, as you know. If So anybody that tries to cross, you know, you're trying to get around each other. So if it was one way, that would help greatly, but the parking is almost essential to what we need there.
I am certainly amenable. I mean, I'm going to ask the rest of the council.
Okay.
If, how the rest of you feel, Councilman Clark?
Am I able to make comments when the actual ordinance comes up?
You are.
Okay, then I'll just wait till.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Nothing?
I'll wait till it comes up.
Okay. Same. Okay. Councilman Lewis?
Okay.
Okay. I'm certainly amenable to it.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, you're very welcome. Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Council President, just a clarification, you will hold a hearing on the rent control ordinance?
We are going to open it up for a second reading. Yes, sir. Katie?
Dan Boyce, 244. I'm going to open my big mouth about the rent control.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you to hold off on it. I'm not following it completely, nor do I need to, but I think it's a drastic measure. It probably wouldn't be needed if enforcement were used. Last week, I received an orange sticker on my house for high grass and debris on my porch. I have sent each one of you, because I didn't get a copy of those pictures, I have sent each one of you pictures of my yard and my porch. Okay, I sent it tonight, so it's in your messenger, all of you. Monday, I believe is when it was posted, last Monday. I had just cut my grass in the front and was in the back cutting my grass when I got stickered for high grass. Now, as most of you know, I cut 10 lawns because they're so small, okay? I'm not following this. I'm beginning to think it's harassment. The last election, I got the same thing.
But does this have anything to do with the actual rent?
Well, what this has to do with enforcement. I'm giving you examples.
I would only request that you direct your comments specifically towards the issue on the agenda
Okay.
item, but if you do have an open comment, you're more than willing to make, you can make that at the open public comment.
Boy, I better have a lot of personality. I'm going to need more than 5 minutes.
I'm trying to,
My issue is, I think the rent control, I understand the reasoning behind it, but maybe it isn't needed if enforcement were in place. Okay?
Thank you. Is there anyone else? There being none, oh, we do have one.
Yeah, I'd like to speak about the rent control.
Yes, sir, your name and address for the record.
Brian Bellon, 346 Webster Street. I'm not sure of the exact goal of putting the rent control in through the town. I feel it's probably to help control the rents and things, I imagine, right? That's what that was before, but I'm not really sure it's worked anywhere. It's been tried. I mean, we could look at New York, is it affordable to live there? San Francisco, it's not affordable to live there, on and on and on. And typically, putting rent control in will raise rents in most places. That's tried, and it doesn't give owners much incentive, I don't think, to improve properties. I did read most of the ordinances. I didn't completely all understand it. It seems, yeah, you could do 3% or whatever. Are we giving landlords license to raise rents 3%? Hey, I got to at least put 3% on because I don't know what property taxes are going to do next year or the following year. I have 2 units in town. I lived in one of them for many years before I met my wife. I've only rented the one tenant. I've only raised the one tenant's rent one time in 13 years because I'm happy with her. She's a great tenant. She pays. I don't want her to leave because if she leaves, I'm going to have to rehab the unit, you know. Most good landlords understand that, I think. There's a lot of bad landlords in town. I totally get that. I think there's probably another way to address those people. I understand a lot of them are out of state, absentee. I don't know. I just think there's a better way to handle it. I do understand that the people that there are tenants that will benefit from rent control, but probably not new tenants coming into the town. People that are here, I mean, you see, you know, I've heard stories of famous actors in New York City. They keep their rent control department. Do they need rent control? No, they don't need rent control. It reduces the amount of available units for people that need them. I think if we want to address affordability, probably the best way would be to see if we could find a way to put more units in the town, which, you know, there might be opposition to that. You know, more traffic, more people, more kids in school, blah, 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 but I don't know. That's my 2 cents.
I appreciate your comment. Thank you very much, sir. Okay, no further comment. We will close the public comment portion and move on to administrative reports. Do we have a sewer subcommittee report?
Just one comment. I didn't see anything on the agenda or the bills list, so I'm going to bring it up. We received something from NSU on September 21st, directed to the mayor's office regarding a request for funding to eliminate the odor control. We've had discussion that the odor control chemical additions that they were using were ordered to be ceased. This is a request to put them back in. Do we know why that's not being done?
I would defer to the mayor if he wishes to answer.
I do.
Okay.
As we all know, some of the odors coming from the plant have been horrendous towards the end of the summer and just recently. Dan Baranski, our plant operator, came up with an idea to shut down an aerator in the East Digester. This aerator was releasing sulfides into the air, and that's where he got his highest levels. What he did is he shut down the aerator. He put in a 60 horsepower pump to keep the sludge moving so it didn't settle and it didn't solidify, and the odors disappeared. As the result of that process, we stopped using the chemicals to kind of mask the odors. The chemicals have never worked. I think at one point they were using cotton candy. That combination kind of got to me a little bit. But this pump system has worked, and he hasn't been ordered to stop using those chemicals. Matter of fact, I had encouraged him to use different types of chemicals, but they just had no effect. This pumping system and eliminating the aeration system and releasing sulfides into the area did work. About 2 or 3 weeks ago, I know our chief financial officer and our town clerk and others were alerted to the fact that we lost one leg of a 2-leg electrical supply. And it was a very high voltage leg. It burned up the breaker box, the relays, the computer system, and some of the large pumps. And I'm just giving this, so providing this information so everybody knows what happened recently. And of course, once that pump stopped, the smell returned. I have given Dan Baranski permission to lease a pump, because they're very expensive, and or purchase a pump to put that odor control back into operation. So it should be done within a couple weeks. And again, the answer is the chemicals don't work.
Thank you, Mayor.
We found a way to get it to work.
Thank you.
So this letter dated September 21st was after all that happened. Is this not happening, or is it still necessary, and do we need to adopt a resolution? It was $59,390.65.
We will. I haven't had a chance to contact Attorney Wenner. It was, 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night, and we will follow up and ask counsel to follow the normal protocol and do our due diligence. The fees for the loss of that one leg are going to be phenomenal. Vicki, may I
Yeah, we
ask?
saw the estimate.
$111,000.
There you go.
Yeah, we saw
The
the estimate.
insurance company wasn't very reassuring that they're going to pay him. But the odor control was of the utmost importance to us right now. I just didn't have the time to follow through with it. I told Dan to go with it. Calls were coming in one after the other, and I thought it would be best to look out for the citizens, and I'll get in a little trouble with council for the billing coming behind.
Okay, so that'll be coming, I passed it
Yes.
along to Attorney Wenner, so we can have it on the next agenda then.
Thank you.
Good.
Council Vice President.
On the redevelopment subcommittee, I'll speak on behalf of Councilman Lutz, who is very happy to hear he's getting better and better each day on the mend. I've stated throughout the summer that October 1st was supposed to be a presentation by a developer that we've been working with throughout the summer. This has been a very tumultuous week for myself, involving some council matters and some other matters that have come before us, which I'll further explain in new business and in open time. With that being said, I didn't feel the magnitude of the size of the agenda and what we had here today and what we go forward, what we have to do yet, it was probably not the appropriate time to bring it forward before our council. So I defer probably after 2 weeks. Councilman Lutz and I will continue to work. And when there is a comfortable time in the near future, as early as 2 weeks, we will present the developer and their plans of making Phillipsburg a brighter and better place. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. We'll skip Lieutenant, go to Mayor's report.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to Mary Jo, that was a joke. Mary Jo Harris for organizing the cleanup on Saturday. It was quite inspiring. We scoured the town and the park. I think we filled 2 dump truck loads of garbage, a lot of cigarette butts and other debris. I thought it brought the town together in a community effort, and the park looks great, except for the graffiti on the newly painted concession. They had to be hiding in the woods waiting for us to put the lids on our cans. But kudos to Northwest Cap, and I know we have a lot more to do, and we will. Lighting up the tunnel was probably one of the smartest things to do, is giving it a safe, a sense of safety coming into the park. So thank you, Mary Jo Harris, and thank you to all the volunteers and everybody.
Is that all, Mayor?
Yes, that's
All right, Mayor, I want to trump you, but we're going to go to the most important part of our agenda, Ray Fat, with the football report.
We had a good week this week, and we'll also have a good week next week when we host Bethlehem Catholic, and then we got at Lopez the following Sunday.
Did you win?
Yes,
All right.
14-6.
Good job, Ray.
Can I also mention about what happened over the weekend?
With regard to?
Gold's Gin.
Sure, go ahead.
This weekend, Gold's Gin closed up on Saturday after 5 o'clock. And I know a lot of people are asking why they close up. If you saw the sign, they closed it, they took everything out. Burley's Gin on Stockton Street is taking members. It's $25 to be a member. I just joined, I'm getting a free membership for November, because 2 of my friends work there.
So if we all sign up and mention you,
Yes,
you're there free for the rest of the year. All
They have
right,
one free, and one no.
you got it, Ray. Thank you very, very much.
Yeah, because I don't know, everybody's been asking about Gold's Gym,
All right.
and they close their doors up at 6 o'clock Saturday night.
Thank you.
And I think it was a mistake they did.
I understand. All right, we're going to move forward though, okay? All right. So we now have our ordinances for a second reading. It's ordinance number 2019-23, an ordinance of the Town of Phillipsburg, County of Warren, State of New Jersey, amending and supplementing Chapter 530 Solid Waste Recycling, Section 3 Solid Waste Recycling of the Code of the Town of Phillipsburg to address the maintenance of waste receptacles. A motion to open?
So moved. Second.
Second. We'll now open it up to the public hearing. It's the second reading.
I'm Joe Miner. I live at 392 South Main Street in Phillipsburg, New Jersey. The garbage cans, I have no space for a dumpster. You can tell me I must arrange for my own commercial disposal. You have no right to tell me I must use the dumpster.
Thank you, Joe.
You're welcome.
Is there anyone else? Councilman Clark, I'll close the public portion.
So my only comments are, because I feel like we've been dealing with this thing for a while. So, as y'all may know, my two biggest concerns when it comes to this are the efficiency of our trash being taken out and the security of our DPW regarding the insurance. So, just for clarity, does this ordinance address the insurance issues that this council has been running into for the time being? And is this something we can all live with?
I believe it met their 50-pound standard.
Okay.
They could be there could be an issue with regard between 32 and 45-gallon cans. From what I understand, it was not there. I don't know the difference between the two as long as it has 50 pounds in it. If it's a 5-gallon bucket, that's 50 pounds in it. 64-gallon garbage can, 50 pounds in it, it's still 50 pounds. That's just my personal opinion, but I haven't heard anything from the insurance company otherwise.
Okay, thank you. That's
You're
all.
welcome. Councilwoman?
So these were just some general questions. I was asked, will they be lifting the bags out of the cans, or will they be picking the cans up and dumping them in?
That would be a procedural question. I think you'd have to.
The reason I ask, I know one house happens to weigh them down with bricks so they don't blow away, because our cans blow away in the weather. So we put bricks in them so that doesn't happen. That's how we've kept our trash cans for 24 years. So I just wanted to make sure I didn't get in trouble when somebody got hit with a brick, because I've got a brick in my trash can. And we keep mothballs in them, to be honest, so it keeps all the animals and creatures out. So it was more of a procedural, you know, I know why we're doing it. I just want to make sure they're actually just pulling the bags out and putting them in.
I would recommend you contact Steve Davis.
Okay.
That's what I would do.
I mean, I know that's just one question I had.
Or stop putting bricks in the garbage cans, but
I'm not losing my garbage. I just bought new cans. I'm not losing my cans. And this will stop all the orange sticker madness?
what's that?
This will stop all the orange sticker madness?
This will.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Councilman Lutz?
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Council Vice President?
No, I'm for this. I have to go out and get new garbage cans because the stickers alone on my garbage cans are 50 pounds. I can't put anything on in the can. It's okay. It was a beta test, that's all it was. Folks were doing what they were told, and I'll leave it at that. I'm for it. Aesthetically, it's gonna make our community look better. We're gonna lose the loose garbage, 50 pounds. We checked Vicki it earlier when this first was born, and we found out, we just wanted to make sure for the safety of our DPW workers that there was a condition to what they can lift, and that was 50 pounds, and that married right up against the ordinance. I'm happy with it. I can move on, and really, most importantly, I would encourage the mayor's office that once this is out, blast out this information in any means possible for our citizens so they can clearly understand what we have. I mean, such as I had this conversation with someone in the audience, our Phillipsburg School District email system is amazing. It's that you get so many, but this is a really hot topic. And so I would hopefully, however this goes, this vote, that the information gets out to our citizens so they know that's probably the most important thing we have. So, thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Mayor, I echo the same sentiment. Should this pass this evening, I would just ask that maybe we can use those email blasts to notify the residents of the change. I mean, your Facebook page, or maybe you can send a letter, whatever we'll do.
We can do that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, motion? Oh, it's been motion. Roll call.
Councilman Clark?
Yes.
Councilwoman DeGirolamo?
Yes.
Councilman Lutz?
Yes.
Council Vice President McVeigh?
Yes.
Council President Polk?
Yes. Ordinance number 2019-23 successfully passes its second reading. Moving forward to ordinance number 2019-24, an ordinance of the town of Phillipsburg, County of Warren, State of New Jersey, to regulate, control, and stabilize rents in the town and amending the municipal code to adopt chapter 463 entitled Rent Control. Motion to open for public hearing.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It is now open to the floor for a public hearing.
I'm Joe Binder. I live at 392 South Main Street in Phillipsburg. Rent control, at the last meeting, someone cited the median rent in Phillipsburg. It was an attempt at deception. By referring to a median rent, the Heckman House rentals and the other two large rental buildings, which I forgot the name of, and the federal subsidized housing all get counted below the median. The only housing that escapes is Section 8 because the aid is calculated differently. There is a waiting list for all this housing. The median rent might be a one bedroom in Heckman House. We have a shortage of low rental housing. We have an abundance of overpriced housing. This does not change the fact, and I am for rental control if it's written correctly. This does not change the fact that the housing ordinance is so bad it must be defeated and tabled for a rewrite. It has a 3-year term with no requirement to inform new tenants. It uses a percentage increase rather than an index increase. It uses a 3-person panel rather than a single judge, which is very expensive. It has a loophole that allows a bad landlord to justify increases by over-borrowing. In the meantime, the market will push prices down. Sincerely, Joseph Minor, and since I want the other for the public record, I'm giving you the other.
Thank you, Jim.
Council President, Mayor, and Council, thanks for hearing us tonight on the rent control ordinance. I was pleased to see that in the revised ordinance, a lot of the issues that we addressed in the initial response to the first reading, second reading, were addressed, and that's very appreciated. And I know this council has big ears, as I've seen here since I've been coming here the last couple of months. People are willing to look at things and adjust as they go. The one disappointment that I have, though, is that the more I think about this, the less I think rent control is an applicable strategy for this particular municipality. This municipality has massive conditions issues. Not a little conditions issue, not a few homes, not an underperforming buildings department. It has 750 underutilized or non-utilized buildings. Rent control is not going to do one thing about those except discourage people from buying them and renting. The people who are living in deplorable conditions, they need to be protected. Rent control is not going to protect them. It's just going to disincentivize their owners from putting more money in. There's no way you can say that the way to help a business owner reinvest in his business is to have him make less money or overregulate it. I don't think this law is going to reward you. And as you know, I'm a professional rent control opponent. That's what I've been doing for a living for over 30 years. There are some towns that I've worked in where rent control was an appropriate strategy because there was a housing shortage, because people needed to be protected from pricing strategies. Do I philosophically agree with that? I could never agree with it philosophically. My training tells me that rent control is a bad idea no matter where you put it. The better idea is to create supply and allow supply to be created that reduces rents. But from a practical point of view, when you put rivers on all sides of a place that everybody wants to get to, if you don't have rent control there, the prices are going to go up in a way that becomes unaffordable. You will never be able to create enough supply in that area. So even if I can say I understand why some people have done it while disagreeing with it, I could never understand why you would do it. I don't think there's any possibility that you will get one of the things done you hope to get done. There's no way that the current rents are going to go up any more than 3% per year. That's not going to happen. So your 3% annual increase is very generous relative to other rent control ordinances, but it doesn't matter. There's not enough demand in this town to push rents that high. You've done another very generous thing. You've allowed for people to have vacancy decontrol. As soon as an apartment is vacated, let the market dictate what that apartment is worth. Very rational. But what is the point of putting all those laws in order to regulate a market whose true problems are not related to rents? The other issue that we have, of course, and I wrote to all of you about this last night, this rent leveling board that you have with the powers that you've given it, that will be struck down immediately. It doesn't even matter if the case is legitimate. There's no way you can provide those powers to that volunteer board. And the other thing about it is it's a volunteer board. In the conversations that we've had, we've revealed how difficult this issue is. And now we're going to take 3 volunteers who don't have any training and try to put them in a position to determine whether or not they can roll back rents. And the one issue that I'll close with, and I appreciate the 5 minutes, I hope to not take all of it, but I want you to think about the way your ordinance is written. Let's say that an owner who has a 100-unit building, and you have a few of those in town, is found to have a conditions issue by your 3-member board. Does that member board roll back the rents on that 1 unit? Or are they permitted to roll back the rents on every unit in the building? Your ordinance doesn't speak to it. And I think that what you're going to find is in an ordinance like this, and there's no other like it. I've never seen another like it. In an ordinance that provides those powers to that particular board, you are going to run into every problem you could have never conceived, and the ones you thought you were going to solve are never going to come up. And that's just the way of these things. So I would again urge, and we've been here before to say this, I represent the larger owners in town and the better care properties in town. We have ideas about convening a committee that would address property conditions issues and inspection issues. And that's what your real problem is. We'd like to contribute to that. We'd like to have an opportunity to contribute to that and share ideas with tenants, share ideas with yourselves about how that might work. But what we don't want to do is do it after you enact an ordinance that ends up causing all sorts of legal fees and all sorts of trouble for people who don't have trouble right now. We'd rather have you say, let's vote this down, convene a committee, wait the 3 months or 6 months it takes us to actually convene a committee of volunteers who care about housing and who are professionals at it and can figure out how to regulate it. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment. Is there anyone else? I didn't see you hiding back there.
Hi, Nicholas Kikas with the New Jersey Apartment Association. I echo a lot of the comments that were made by Mr. Simoncini earlier, and I don't want to belabor this hearing by repeating them. The 2 things I would like to highlight. Number one, I think what Ron said is very true, that the problem in town is an investment problem. It's not a rent problem. Rent control is a tool for reducing runaway rents. We're not seeing runaway rents in town. We're seeing a lack of investment, but rent control universally, where it's deployed and where we see it, it reduces investment in rental housing. By reducing investment in rental housing, there are 2 things happen. It reduces the quality of those rental units, which clearly we don't want to see. But secondly, by doing that, it begins to reduce the revenue that's produced by those units, which ends up shifting the property tax burden that we see that's currently being paid by rental housing. We see that getting shifted to homeownership units. It ends up becoming a very zero-sum game. I think an idea of putting together a task force or a committee to discuss some of these rental housing issues, I think would be a very effective tool. If rent control is kind of a way